Okay, going back to the Yellow River. This is the third longest river in Asia, and it's as important to Chinese civilization as the Nile was to Egyptian civilization. So the Yellow River originates in Tibet. 45% of its water comes from glaciers and massive underground springs of the Qinghai Tibet Plateau. It's slow and sluggish in many parts, although I'm going to show you an image that suggests the opposite in a moment. And it's one of the world's muddiest major rivers. And it's named for the. Here's the Hukao waterfall of the Yellow River. So while I just said it was slow and sluggish, there are obviously parts that, are waterfalls and are pretty rapid. Um, the river the river has caused frequent devastating floods. Some of the deadliest floods in China's history were the Yuan Dynasty flood in 1332. In 1887, more recently, the Qing Dynasty flood, which killed an estimated 2 million people. And in 1931, under the rule of the Republic of China, there was a flood, but it was also part of a number of massive floods that year. And they estimate it killed between 1 and 4 million people. So you can see why it's sometimes referred to as the River of Tears. The yellow silt that it carries. We move now into the Bronze Age. I want to talk to you about bronze, the material bronze. It is a alloy of copper and tin. I found this infographic that kind of shows you a couple of key points to keep in mind with bronze. So it is brittle, but less so than iron. There is low friction against other metals, which is good in manufacturing. It oxidizes because of the copper that's in it. It oxidizes and it has this greenish colored patina when exposed to oxygen. And it expands when hardening from a liquid to a solid. And here's a bronze figure from circa 1200. The Bronze Age was a founding moment in Chinese culture, and we're going to see why. It was a really expensive material. It required very skilled, highly skilled laborers to work with it and produce objects in bronze, which shows us that there were very advanced civilizations who were using it. And we continue to discover ancient civilizations in China, and we're able to kind of document how advanced we think they were based on the bronze pieces that are found there. One of the major discoveries was the discovery of Sanshui Dao. This upset all previous models of early Chinese cultures. It was technically, the bronze pieces were technically more advanced than anything found at Anyang, which was previously thought to be the cradle of Chinese civilization. You'll see these are very striking. The eyes are probably the most prominent part of the feature. Along with the deep lines and shadows that they create, and very, very symmetrical once again. So it's changing our understanding of early power centers whenever there is bronze uncovered in China. When it's in its liquid molten state, it actually grows a little bit larger when it cools and cures to become a solid. Now, some have commented that they look un-Chinese. And that's an interesting comment because the idea of what Chineseness is was just a construct based on previous finds. So, who is to say what is Chinese and what isn't? They were found in, city-states in China, so they are Chinese. This massive scale of human figures had never been found before. The pits containing these statues did not contain any human remains, so we're not sure exactly what their function was. But it does seem that they would suggest power and wealth by the rulers that had them made or buried them. Now we talked about bronze, and there's an age called the Bronze Age. So let's look at some of the dynasties that ruled during the so-called Bronze Age. The Xia, which were once thought to be purely mythological. The Shang, which their biggest claim to fame was they established the beginning of written history. And the Zhou dynasty, which was the first one to unify a bunch of smaller city states in China. So the Shia, one way you can remember the impact of the Shia is by the great Yu who controlled the waters. So the great Yu ruler, he created a system of irrigation channels on the Yellow River. These relieved floodwaters into fields. He also dredged riverbeds, and he completed this major project in 13 years. And civilization was able to flourish along the river, thanks to his engineering. Also, in the Shia dynasty, of course, their main industry was agriculture. They devised a 12-year calendar and they used this to determine appropriate farming activities. And they also recorded the movement and configuration of the stars. Moving on to the next dynasty, the Shang dynasty, or Shang dynasty, they originated from an ancient tribe on the Yellow River. They used former Xia palaces as well as expanded their region and built their own palaces and temples. And they moved their capital strategically several times in order to avoid natural disasters. The Shang grew grain, wheat, and millet. They raised sheep, cows, dogs, and pigs. And they created bronzewares, pottery, bonewares, jade, and lacquer. Um, Here's a video game still of the Shang King Wu Ding. The king enjoyed the highest power, as you would expect. In the 14th century, King Wu Ding settled the society in one area, Yin, in northwestern Anyang, and there he was able to establish a golden era under his rule. The Shang dynasty lasted 255 years with 12 kings. However, the last king was known to be a tyrant. He built luxurious gardens and lived a life of debauchery. King Wu of Zhou, a small nearby city state, saw the opportunity of this, weak king that was ruling and led his army to attack the Shang capital. The Shang king burned himself to death and the Shang dynasty ended.